much better.
Raise some Cain. You gotta raise some Cain. In the heartland where the faith runs strong, we've seen the shadows growing long. Watch those around us be deceived. Yeah, the fight is at our doors, no matter who we believe. Corruption, lawless day and night, we'll speak the truth into the light. We'll bring the battle, heed the call, watch the whole thing fall. We gotta raise some Cain, show the lies, break some chains and make things right. Feel the power, be the change, time is now. We gotta raise some Cain.
Since 2017, 150,000 farms have shut down. Working farmland has been reduced by 21 million acres. The system has been crippling the remaining farmers, forcing some to adopt nefarious farming techniques, by pumping hormones and other performance-enhancing drugs into their cows so they can survive in crammed feedlots. Or the farmers are forced to jump ship and sell to land-hoarding, profit-chasing agricultural oligarchies, who use their billions of dollars to crush the competition and increase your family's dependence on their manufactured food. What could possibly go wrong? The family farm will soon be a thing of the past, unless you do something. You can. That's why there's From the Farm, an industry-disrupting platform that connects consumers directly with local farmers, which means you can buy fresh, non-factory farm food, and you'll know exactly where your food came from and how it was raised. For the first time in nearly 100 years, independent farms will have a way to not only survive, but thrive. From the Farm was founded by A.J. Richards, an active homesteader, and Brooke Entz, a CrossFit Games athlete and an Amazonian warrior in the movies Wonder Woman and Justice League. She clearly has a passion for healthy food and a healthy lifestyle. And since both AJ and Brooke come from generations of ranchers and farmers, they know what they're talking about. We can't do this alone. We need the strength of the American people behind us. Help us build a new food system that combines the wisdom of the past with the technology of the future. Investing in From the Farm isn't just a financial decision. It's an investment into our future, our small family farms, and our food sovereignty. Invest today.
Welcome to the Raising Cain Show. Tonight, we are honored to host Sami Steigmann, a man whose life story is a living testament to resilience, courage, and conviction. Born into the horrors of Nazi occupation, Sami survived unimaginable cruelty, including Nazi medical experiments, and the bitter cold of a labor camp where starvation was daily life. Now, decades later, Sami joins us to issue an urgent call. Anti-Jewish attacks are rising again. From college campuses to violent hate crimes, we are witnessing a resurgence of dangerous anti-Jewish sentiment, eerily reminiscent of the precursors to one of history's darkest chapters. Sami's mission is not only to tell us his story, but to equip us all with the courage to speak out, because silence is complicity. Sami, thank you so much for joining us today.
Nate, it's my honor, and I am here to educate, especially the next generation. All the changes in the world have been accomplished by young people, and I will also talk about how the Holocaust did happen. It did not happen suddenly, but the most important thing is for them to learn how they can combat and prevent future tragedies. Now, knowledge without action and without bringing the media, okay, is not very effective.
Yeah.
And the Jewish people are not united. They do not speak with one voice. And that's why nobody hears us. And that is one of the biggest problems that we have. And as long as we do not change our tactics, Israel will never win the PR war.
Yeah. Well, and that's an interesting point right there that you make about the PR. I remember years ago studying about this and doing research into the propaganda war that was waged by the Nazi Party, and it was really interesting because years later, I began to see some things being put out on social media, and I recognized it. It was the same propaganda that had been spread by the Nazi Party. So we're going to get into that and a whole lot more tonight. But first and foremost, a lot of people may not know you. They may not know your story. Can you share with us a brief, story of your early years and the
Yes.
labor camp and what you experienced in terms of occupation?
I was born on December 21, 1939, in an area that does not exist anymore. It was called the Austro-Hungarian Empire. They had many areas. The area where my mother and I were born was called Bukovina. In Bukovina, okay, west part of Romania at that particular time. My father, on the other hand, okay, he was born in Romania proper. Uh, uh, I don't know if your audience know, but in Operation Barbarossa, on June 22nd, 1941, when Germany broke their agreement with the former Soviet Union not to attack each other, what happened is behind the German military were special mobile killing groups called Einsatzgruppen. They were not fighting forces. Their only job was to murder Jews and Russians. And behind them were the Romanian troops. And that's why we were deported by the Romanians and not by the Germans. The Romanian troops annexed an area of former Soviet Union called Transnistria. And that's where I was in a labor camp called Mogilev Podolsk. Like I said, it was a labor camp, but my parents and I, okay, when we were there, I was only a year and a half. So obviously, I have no memories from that period of time. For me, it's a blessing in disguise. I don't have to relive those horror stories like the older generation. And at the same time, until the Eichmann trial, we'll talk more about it in Israel in 1961, the Holocaust survivors did not speak. They wanted the children to have a normal childhood. And I started to speak for the first time only in 2008. Okay, I was, because I was so young and did not have the skill or the strength to work, uh, whether your audience knows it or not, 1.5 children were murdered. And if you ask any survivor, how come you're alive today? Everybody will use only one word, and that is luck. My luck was that I was never separated from my parents. I was subjected to medical experiments. I felt them every single second of my life and will feel them for the rest of my life. And at the same time, when came a stage that I was dying of starvation, there are physical signs like big head, swollen stomach, swollen feet. A German woman decided to give me milk and saved my life.
Wow.
Not far away from the camp, there was a farm owned by Germans, and she brought food to the guards in the SS. And she risked not only her own life, but the life of her entire family to save me.
Wow. That's an amazing story. Now, have you had the opportunity to talk with her or with her family members or anybody from her farm?
Obviously, I have don't know her name, and I was not able to honor her in person or posthumously. However, in 2014, I was in Israel to give testimony at the Holocaust Museum in Jerusalem, Yad Vashem. Next to the museum, there is a garden honoring 27,000 people that saved Jews. And I saw a marker honoring the unknown righteous among the nations. And that made me very happy because indirectly, the woman that saved my life has been honored.
Wow. That's amazing. Well, I'm sure she'll be blessed in heaven. The
Yeah.
you said, so this story, I had my own experience hearing a story firsthand from an American soldier who he's now long passed on, but he was a World War II soldier, veteran, and he liberated one of the camps. And I don't remember which one it was, but we had an opportunity to just share some time together, and he shared some very personal stories with me and what he saw upon entering into one of the camps. And he said it was the only time that he, during the entire war, that he kind of lost it. And that was when they entered this camp, and there were train cars loaded full of people, of Jews, that were left to die in these cars, and they had basically starved to death and died of exposure, and trying to claw their way out of these train cars. And it was, he said that he had never seen anything like that in his life, and he still had nightmares, even all the way, into his old age. I think
go ahead.
When I think about stories like that, and I know certainly about a lot of stories. My great grandfather, was in the Pacific Theater and was a prisoner of war in the Philippines, and was for 3 years in the survivor of the Bataan Death March. When I think about the kinds of horrors that happened, and you think about how there are people actively today trying to spread propaganda that the Holocaust never happened and that it is all a myth, when I know people firsthand, family members firsthand, who saw with their own eyes these things that occurred, it angers me, and it saddens me. It saddens me that we're at a point where people could believe, in that kind of propaganda. But how does that happen in today, in the world that we live in, where we have access, to really dig into things? Because I remember seeing, like I said, when I did some research back in college and researched into this propaganda, I saw, the Nazi propaganda at that time. And it was interesting because I was looking at a social media post by somebody, and it was making some outrageous claim about Jews. And I responded. I said, that picture and that comment that you are posting is propaganda from the Nazi Party. And here's where you can see, where that came from. I said, this is a lie. It's propaganda, and you're spreading it. So I'm seeing this resurgence, and it's actually been going on for some time. And I wish I could say I'm a conservative, on the right. And I wish I could say I only see this on the left. And there certainly is plenty, of anti-Jewish sentiment on the left, but I'm seeing it on the right too. It's all across the board. And I'm speaking out about it because I don't want to see it, number one, in our country where we're supposed to be a free people. And I certainly don't want to see it, amongst people who I consider, people that I thought were reasonable and logical and able to see past the lies and propaganda. So what has been your experience, and what have you been seeing in terms of the rise of anti-Jewish sentiment? And to let everybody know, you won't hear me use the term anti-Semitic. You'll hear me use the term anti-Jewish. And Sami and I had a conversation about this, and I agree 100%. It's important to state anti-Jewish because Semite means many things. But really what this is it is a prejudice and a racism that is against the Jewish race. And it's important, I think, to distinguish that, because it makes up the bulk, of racist attacks, even in our country, is against Jews, more so than any other race, even though they only make up 2% of the American population. It's completely out of balance. So what is your thoughts on that? And share with me what you've been seeing from your perspective. I mean, you've been around a lot longer than I have, obviously. When did that shift begin?
That shift began 4,000 years ago. It's nothing new. It never disappeared. It just took different forms depending, on the circumstances and the technology of that period of time. It started initially with the church because, Christianity, uh, all all the apostles, they were Jews. How do you create, a new religion? Okay, coming from a different one. So obviously, you have to demonize the other one. And
Hmm.
then it came economic, and it took different forms throughout the years. Right now, it's anti-Zionism, it's anti-Israel. It's all kinds of things that are absolutely do not make any sense. Uh, to understand, okay, what's happening today, we have to understand propaganda. And propaganda is not something that changes immediately. It's very, very, very slow. And people do not react in time and appropriately, and then it keeps escalating. Like, for instance, to give an example with what happened in October 7. And
Hmm.
if you want to talk more about it, but in October 7, people tried to make it and compare it to the Holocaust. And my saying is, please don't. Even the Nazis were not that brutal. Okay, they tried to hide their crimes. At the same time, okay, uh, if you have to make a comparison, please compare it to the brutality of ISIS, but not
Yes.
with the Holocaust. Uh, the other thing is that we also have to understand how genocide and Holocaust happened. Everything started, all the tragedies with words and bullying. Okay, and people did not react on time. So let's start first of all with the Holocaust, how it happened from the beginning, go through the stages until it reached a point of no return. And my mission in life is to educate the next generation, okay, to see the signs of today, to know how to combat, okay, this particular virus of bullying, bigotry, Jew hatred, hate, racism, the ideology that can never be eradicated. The only way, from my personal perspective, that we can combat it is only through education. And like I told you before, education without action and without bringing the media, okay, is not very effective. And we as Jews have helped every other ethnic group, but for some reason we forgot how to fight for ourselves, and we are not united. So, with your permission, let me go through the stages of the Holocaust. Uh, when Germany lost the war in World War One, and the Treaty of Versailles, there were three punishments that were so severe that the German people lost their national pride. Number one, they had to return all the occupied land. Number two, okay, they could not have an army. I have seen pictures that in a military parade, instead of guns, they had shovels. In number three, they had to pay reparations to all the countries that they fought against. Now, all of us are familiar with a personal inflation, but very few people know about national inflation. And I was in Germany three times. And when I asked seventh graders, can you tell me how much a dollar was worth in 1923? In 1917, one American dollar was worth four German money. And guess what? The seventh graders knew the answer. I'm going to ask you. You probably know by now because we talked before. How much was a dollar worth in 1923 at the height of the inflation?
I have no idea.
One,
I know that they were burning money just to stay warm,
correct.
but I don't know what the exact amounts were.
1 trillion.
Wow.
You could have a wheelbarrow full of paper money, and you could not buy even a newspaper. They did not want it. So you can
Yeah.
understand the condition that allowed somebody like Hitler to come to power. The other problem that we are having is that they have a lot of groups that they start very small. In with the Smith, they had only 6 members, but through propaganda, brainwashing, during the elections of 1932, 30% of the German people. I believe that most of your audience will not know that the initial goal of the Nazis was to have a Germany free of Jewish people, Juden frei. But the Jews were assimilated.
There is I'm getting your signal is breaking up here. I lost him. Hopefully he'll come back here in a minute, folks. Just give us one moment. This issue, I believe, is so important today because we are beginning to see the same type of propaganda that is being pushed. It's being widely accepted. And what we're seeing is this notion of Jews being, for one, all categorized as the same, even though, as Sami had mentioned, that not all Jews speak for one another. They all have very different views, very different political views. Some are Democrats, some are Republicans, some are neither. They all have very different positions, but they seem to be made into a scapegoat. And that's an interesting term because it actually comes from the Jewish religion. And where basically all of the blame of the world's problems gets put on them, obviously unfairly. So this is something that I want to address tonight in the show while I'm waiting for Sami to come back on here. It is something that I see as really at the crux of the problem. And I think we have to address it. I think we have to start talking about this. And we have to admit when we see it, even in amongst our own ranks of people that maybe we, know people that we might have some bit of influence over, it's up to us to be able to speak to them and help walk them back from this lie, from the propaganda, from the so-called Jewish conspiracy. Hold on one moment.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Very
I can
good.
hear you now. All right. So we lost him,
Okay.
and hopefully we won't have any more technical problems. But Sami, while you were off, I was talking about to the folks that are listening. I was bringing up the fact that
I cannot hear you. Okay. I cannot hear you. You're breaking up constantly after every word.
okay. How about now? Can you hear me? Okay. Are you able to hear me? I think your signal is still not coming in
Now it's
really
better.
well. Okay. So I was talking to folks about the central
Okay.
problem.
Now I can hear you.
Okay, good. I was talking to folks about the central problem that the Jews oftentimes get categorized all in the same bucket. And as you mentioned earlier, not every Jew speaks for another Jew. You've got some Jews that are Democrats, some Jews that are Republicans, some Jews that, believe in capitalism, some that might believe in socialism. You've got a whole variety of Jews that have very different beliefs, very different ideals. And to categorize them all together as if there's some grand Jewish conspiracy is absolutely ridiculous. And that is what I see happening, is that the Jews end up being scapegoated, which is a very interesting term because it comes from the Jewish religion. But the Jews end up becoming the scapegoat for all the problems that are going on in the nation, or all the problems that are going on, in society. This is what I saw that had happened in Germany. And it seems that oftentimes that is what they're trying to do here in America. That's certainly what happens in the Middle East. I've had friends that were Muslims. That I had a friend who was born in Iran, and he was very anti-Jewish. And I asked him, why do you have a problem with the Jews? And he basically laid out a grand Jewish conspiracy, blaming all the problems going on in the world on the Jews. I had another friend who was from Pakistan, same thing. So there seems to be this grand conspiracy that is at the heart of it, and this scapegoating. And I think that, to me, is like the central problem. The Jews become an easy target, and because they're a minority group, because they have, many of them have had relative success in banking and other industries, and so they become a target by those who need somebody to blame all of the problems on. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, you are absolutely right. Because when things are not going well in a personal life or in a national, people have a tendency to blame others. As a matter of fact, Hitler and the Nazis, they blamed, you may be surprised, they said, German people, Germany did not lose the war in World War One. We were stabbed in the back by the communists and by the Jews. The communists were feared. The Cold War was against the communists. The Jews were hated. As a matter of fact, the first concentration camp in Germany, Dachau, the Nazis did not target the Jews. They targeted their political enemy, the communists. It so happened that most of the communists were Jews. Going back to what I was talking before, okay, with the inflation that happened, so obviously it was easy to blame the communists and the Jews. So they treated the Jews very badly. They monopolized the media, and since the Jews fought for Germany proudly in World War One, they were assimilated and they considered themselves Germans. So why would they want to leave? So they came out in 1935 with the Nuremberg laws that made life so difficult that a lot of the Jews did leave. But a lot of the Jewish leaders told them, this is the most enlightened country in the world. Don't leave. It cannot go worse. And about 200,000 Jews remained in Germany. And you know what happened. The coup d'etat, from the PR perspective, was the Olympics of 1936 in Berlin. The other thing is, guess who helped the Nazis, after World War One? And I'll give you only two examples because there were many organizations that did. Number one was IBM. IBM came out with the census tab, if you remember. So they gave it to the Nazis. So besides the neighbors that gave up the Jews, they also had from the IBM all the information where the Jews lived. That's how they knew how to arrest them. The other one was Ford Foundation, with the equipment, the machines, guns, the same thing also with the cars and everything else. So these are only two examples that the United States helped them, develop. So people know what's happening? Yes. Did they react in time? There were small pockets of resistance like there are today, but not nationally. Okay, so why not escalate? So what happened is it came in 1938 when they annexed a neighboring country, Austria. And in Austria, okay, the two events have happened. One of them that most of the people know, November 9, November 10, Kristallnacht, when they murdered over 100 people, they destroyed over 7,500 stores in synagogues, and put in prison 30,000 people. To add insult to injury, they also forced the Jews to pay for the cleanup. Okay, but there was another event that very few people know, and that is the Operation P4. Uh, for Germans, the mentally and physically ill were considered okay a financial burden, and they start to make experiments on them and also primitively to gas them. And here is what's important, talking about each one of us. I don't care about the age. We have a voice and we must not be afraid to speak up. A priest found out about it, made it public in Germany. There was an outcry throughout Germany. And guess what? The killings stopped, but not before they murdered over 200,000 mentally and physically ill Germans. Okay. So I'm not going to repeat it, but we must react to every escalation in time inappropriately. So the next stage is coming, okay, September 1st, 1939. Obviously, okay, Poland and World War II. However, unlike Europe, okay, which surrendered within 2 weeks, it was called the Blitzkrieg. Okay, Poland was annexed, and okay, in Germany they did not want any Jews, but now in the Greater Germany they find 3.3 million Jews. What the hell do you do with them? And that came with the idea of exterminating them. Okay, and slowly. Okay, but during the Kristallnacht, it was the first time that the Germans actually became violent against the Jews,
Mhm.
not before. So now what's happening is, okay, comes two more stages that are very important, or three. The next stage is June 22nd, 1941, and the Operation Barbarossa, okay, when they attacked former Soviet Union, okay, with the Romanian troops, and I told you about it, okay, before, and that's why we were deported by the Romanians, not by the Germans. And uh, the next stage comes January 20, 1942, in a city which today is part of Berlin, Wannsee. 15 high-ranking Nazi criminals got together to decide the final solution to the Jewish question. And please remember, when I use the final, it means there were many, many steps to lead to that particular point. And they decided to start with Europe. They came out with a list of all of the European countries, depending on the source that you read, between 9.5 and 11 million people. Once they were going to murder all of the European Jews, they were going to open up a museum in Prague. They were going to call the Museum of the Extinct Jewish Race. So you can see the escalation and what's happening right now in this country. Things keep escalating. Look what's happening in universities. They started
Yeah.
very small. Okay, there was no reaction. Why wouldn't he come further? And from my perspective, when you call death to Israel, death to America, global intifada, that is not freedom of speech. That's
No, it's not.
incitement. That's incitement.
That's
And
right.
we receive them with open arms. If you hate United States that much, send them back.
Yep. And that's already been decided in the Supreme Court before. that, calling for it, it's the same, it's that argument about you can't run into a crowded theater and yell fire. Inciting a riot, that is a crime. And that is exactly what has been going on. And
It
yet
has not been enforced.
that's right.
That's the
That's
problem.
right. The other thing too that happened, and I think this is an important thing to bring up, and I think this is probably one of the saving graces that we have here in America, but it's not enough. And we need to make sure that we're protecting every citizen, and that includes Jews and their rights. But the right to bear arms in this country has been something I think that has held back some of these types of things that could have happened here that happened in Germany. I know in 1933, the Nazis began local raids on places like Berlin, targeting Jewish homes to seize weapons. And by 1936, the Gestapo had prohibited police from issuing firearms licenses to Jews. And so
Correct.
disarmament was one of the most important things that was necessary for them to be able to round people up.
And
My
to
fear in
control them.
America is that there's such a complacency and such I mean, I think about like how many people actually don't exercise their rights because they don't feel the need to. And so the question becomes, could that ever happen here? And we've seen where the United States has had laws that were against the Constitution, and eventually it got corrected. But obviously we had slavery in this nation, for a very long time, which was against the Constitution, but it took a civil war to end it. I don't want to see us end up in some situation where we have an oppressive government. And this was my concern that I saw, like during the COVID situation, was that you had the government come out and say, everybody has to, go get vaccinated if you want to have a job, if you want to be able to work in the government, if you want to be able to do this or do that, you have to go get this vaccine. They started taking away people's rights, and they started using coercion. So I'm really curious about how was coercion used against Jews during the Holocaust, because I'm sure they were affected by that as well, pressured to where they couldn't buy food or things like that unless they registered and things like
Right.
that.
Right. Now, in my particular case, I was subjected to medical experiments, and I fought against to mandate. We
Yep.
as people know our body much better than the doctor.
That's right.
Okay. And what happened is I had to take the first two because I knew that if I'm not taking it, I will not be able to speak in schools. I have never taken anything else. I did not wear a mask. Okay. I've been with people that had the COVID. I know people that took 4 and 5 different shots, and they had 2, 3, 4 times the COVID. I never had it. And that's why I'm saying fits
Yeah.
all. Okay. So that coercion, what it does, it takes away the rights from people. And what's happening today in this country,
I'm losing your signal again, it looks like.
anybody to
Oh,
silence
there you
you,
go.
they have the right to say whatever it is, even the most heinous things. Okay, you have the right.
Sorry about this technical problems, folks, but unfortunately we're having issues here with Sammy's signal. But on that issue of coercion, hopefully he'll be back here soon. This is really important. This is why I was so adamantly opposed to the mandates, because they were, in fact, coercion. Hold on one moment. He's calling.
Okay, so okay, so what one thing that I want to talk about, if it's okay with you,
Yes.
what is a Holocaust survivor? Okay, Not everybody that went through the war is a Holocaust survivor. I know people that they were not okay in a camp, but they claim they are the Holocaust survivors. To me, a Holocaust survivor is somebody that was in one of the three type of camps. Can you hear me,
Yes.
Nate?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Okay, and now I can hear you.
Okay.
Did you hear what I said? What is a
Yes.
Holocaust survivor?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so somebody that was in one of the three type of camp, concentration camp, when they divided people in two lanes, one would be murdered right away. The second one would become slave. Labor camp, where my parents and I were, where they worked you to death, beat you to death, starved you to death. People died of disease, and many times they used you as a shooting target. And the other thing is that I was completely shocked in 2013 when I read two articles. One of them was in Daily Mail in London, and one in New York Times. The Nazis and their collaborators had 42,500 different type of camps. Not all of them were barbed wire. And interestingly enough, okay, they destroyed a lot of the records, and we will never know the full extent what happened during those days. Currently, they discovered additional mass graves. The number has risen to over 44,000 different type of camps, but only six were dead camps. And from the six, it was Auschwitz, Birkenau, Treblinka, Belzec, Sobibor, Chelmno, and Majdanek. This year, we commemorated the 80th anniversary when Auschwitz Birkenau was liberated by the Soviets. By the way, something interesting. I was in something called March of the Living. This is taking students to Poland in Israel. This year, every other delegation, except the one from New York and New Jersey, went only to Poland. We also went to Israel. In 2017, I started having difficulty walking long distances, going in an incline, and also climbing stairs. And what happened is I had an ingrown toenail. They offered me a wheelchair, but I refused. Number one, I wanted to challenge myself. But secondly, I want to use the pain that I went through to teach something the young people. It's difficult to put in words what people had to go through during those days in the camps. And by knowing my situation, seeing me struggle, determined to make it, I hope that they got a glimpse of what people had to go through to survive. And the other thing is what I want to say is that in 1991, 46 years after the war ended, finally, another group of people were recognized as Holocaust survivors. And these were people that were saved by strangers, hidden by them. They lived in the forests, they lived in the sewers, and did whatever they could to escape the dire consequences.
Yeah.
So we have to understand not everybody was a survivor, okay? They lived during those days. They did what they had to do, but they were not threatened with their lives. Uh, I did not feel that I belonged to the Holocaust survivors because I have no memory of that time. Until the Eichmann trial in 1961, the Holocaust survivors wanted the children to have a normal childhood. Okay, I did not know anything else. And what happened is there were two events that put me on the speakers circuit in 2008. At the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., for 16 years in a row, closed its doors to the general public for 2 days, once a year. It opened it up only to the Holocaust survivors, their children, and their liberators. I never went. Don't ask me why. Meant to be. On November 1st and November 2nd of 2003, I went. There were over 8,000 people from all over the world. Okay? And, okay, at the table where I was sitting, I met a man born in the same city, been in the same camp, the same years, 1941, 1944. He was deported when he was 8 months old. I was deported when I was a year and a half. And that is the difference between history and what your audience is experiencing, living history. By meeting him, I decided to stop ignoring being a Holocaust survivor or a child of Holocaust survivors. I felt I don't belong to the children of Holocaust survivors because most of them were born in DP camps, displaced people. They had to be there for 3 to 5 years because they had no place to go. Nobody wanted them. But the daily threat of being murdered did not exist. So in 2007, I joined the Holocaust Museum downtown New York. And in 2008, I got my first assignment to speak to sixth graders. I did not feel that I have a compelling story. And I knew only one thing: I know more than they do. And at the same time, I used the slogan of Nike: just do it. Okay. So what happened is another miracle happened. They sent me thank you letters, each one better than the other. But one sixth grader wrote, P.S. Your story was overwhelming, and I promise I'll pass your story to my children. It was the first time that I realized that I have something very important that I must talk, I must tell. Okay, I did research, listened to other people and everything else, and created my unique story.
Yeah. You
By the way, I forgot to tell you one thing. With the medical experiments, and I told you that I'm right now. You look at me and you think I'm a perfect picture of health. I'm suffering every second. But the reason they could not find a cure in my particular case is because it's not localized. I suffered and suffered from head, neck, shoulders, and back. Because of my age, I have other issues not related to it. Uh, so, what happened in my case, I did not know where it starts. Even today, I don't know how long it will be there. I don't know where it will go. And I don't know the intensity. In a scale of 1 to 10, most of my life, it was 8 and 9. Okay, right now, because I'm, with my age, things subside. So today, I would say it's between 2 and 4 every single second. But I'm
wow.
coming from a generation that was very stoic, so you will not see it in my face, on my face.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was something that happened. It was the Germans did that. The Japanese also conducted medical experiments on people as well. And that was
Correct.
something that my great grandfather testified to at the Tokyo Tribunal. It's interesting, I think that a lot of Americans, we need to think about the fact that when people deny the Holocaust, they're not just denying history and what happened to the Jews, but they're also denying the history of the United States' involvement in stopping the Nazis and the lives that were lost. We lost so many lives in World War II.
Correct.
And it
We just
really it is
commemorated the Battle of Normandy.
that's right. It's a disgrace. It's a disgrace, and it is a it basically it is a
Let me
it's
ask you
not
something, Nate.
sure.
Let me ask you something.
Yeah.
What happened in Colorado? Okay,
Yeah.
the guy overstayed his visa. He's illegal.
That's right.
Why is he going through the American legal system? He's not a citizen. He
Nope.
doesn't have the right to it. Why?
That's right.
Why are they putting him through the legal system? Can you explain it to me?
No, he should have been deported. I mean, that's the
And his
bottom line. The
family.
moment
His
that you're here
family.
illegally, you should be immediately deported back to your country.
Well, let's hope that right now with Trump, maybe things will change. By the way, I am an optimist. Uh, it took 60 years, slowly through propaganda. People did not react to come where we are today.
Yeah.
Okay. I also believe we went through difficult times in the past, but in time, things went to the middle. And I believe that the pendulum will swing, but
I
not
agree.
as fast as we want. I am not as pessimistic as other survivors are. I also am convinced that the Holocaust will never happen again. Genocide, yes, but not Holocaust because of the technology of today. Nobody will be able to say, I did not know, I did not hear, I did not see. Everything is instant.
Yeah.
And to take in the whole world to eliminate one group of people, it's impossible.
Yeah. You've often said that never again is being tested today. What parallels do you see between the climate of the 1930s and the rise of anti-Jewish attacks around the world? I mean, it's happening everywhere, and I agree with you. I don't think that we will see a Holocaust again, but we certainly will see genocide. We certainly will see attacks on Jews, and I think that
In other groups of people.
exactly, and I think there's a
It's totally
pendulum, and I do think that it is right now. We're at one side of that, but
different.
you know,
It starts with the Jews, but it does not end there.
no, it does not.
Okay.
A lot of people, in fact, I'm glad you brought that up. In fact, a lot of people are not aware that there were many, many other people in addition to Jews that were murdered by the Nazis.
11 million, 6 million were Jews. Okay. And the other thing that I believe people do not understand, we use the same words, but they mean different things to different people. So I ask adults, wherever I go and speak, and I ask, what does it mean to you, 6 million? Nobody can give me an answer. And I say, I feel exactly the way you do. It's a number. But let's bring it to a common denominator. If you would be on your feet and silent for 1 minute for every victim of the Holocaust, 6 million minutes, you would be on your feet and silent for 11 and a half years. That gives you a totally different perspective, okay, of the tragedy of what happened during World War II.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point of, it never stops with the Jews. They rounded up people who were gypsies. They rounded up people who were, there were other ethnic groups that they rounded up. There were homosexuals they rounded up and murdered. They rounded up Freemasons and murdered them. Anybody at all that they could create a conspiracy theory around to attack.
It was a superior race. Everybody else was inferior.
That's right.
They considered the Russians, they considered themselves subhuman.
Yep.
They were extremely cruel against the Russians.
So it seems that there has definitely been a major increase in violent attacks, since the attack on Israel. It has gone up, I think, by 200% is what's being reported in terms of violent attacks. And just to go over some of them, you had, of course, in November of 2023 in Thousand Oaks, Paul Kessler, 69-year-old Jewish man, was killed during a confrontation at a pro-Israel rally. And this was a pro-Palestinian counter-protester that struck him with a megaphone. You had Dr. Benjamin Haruni in March of 2024, a Jewish dentist, was murdered in an attack, anti-Jewish attack. And, this was a targeted killing of Jewish professionals that was going on at the time. You had a nationwide campus incidents that have been happening all over the place. But in April of 2024, Jewish students faced multiple physical assaults during pro-Palestinian protests on college campuses, most notably at UCLA and Columbia University.
In Harvard.
That's right, at Harvard as well. Yep. And then Chicago, Illinois, in October of 2024, a Jewish man was shot while walking to synagogue. And the incident occurred in a major urban center, and it highlighted the ongoing risk to Jews at every city setting around the world. There's this pattern has been happening, and it's been growing. And of course, most recently, you had the Boulder situation. You had the shooting in Washington, D.C., right out in front. In all of these things, they have very similar linked issues. They're all pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas.
It does not have the Palestinians.
No.
It does not help them.
No, it doesn't. And not only that, but none of these people who were killed here in the United States are even involved in that. So
Correct.
it's insanity. And the thing that gets me when you see, I think it was June 6th, the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security issuing a public service announcement warning of an elevated threat to Jewish and Israeli communities in the U.S. That PSA was prompted by the Boulder attack and the Washington, D.C. shooting. And within the threat context, they said that ongoing Israel-Hamas conflict initiated by the October 7th, 2023 Hamas attack. I want to say something about this. Regardless of what somebody's view is on foreign policy and what Israel should or should not do, has very little to do with the innocent Jewish people who were kidnapped, many of them children, many of them women, many of them no threat to anybody in Gaza, but these people were kidnapped, raped, murdered, taken across the border into a foreign country. Decapitated. These things are not.
And they were
warfare.
Proud.
Warfare.
Proud.
Warfare is not equal to what was done by Hamas. What Hamas did was terrorism. What Hamas did was barbarism. And when I hear people who want to try and play it down that this was just war, no. War doesn't specifically target women and children and non-combatants. That is not, Israel's not doing that. In fact, they have a whole committee. This is the thing that's crazy about it. They've got a whole committee of people that sit down and talk about, when they're going to bomb somewhere, they drop leaflets saying, get out of the area. I mean, nobody else does this in war. In the Ukraine and in Russia?
In the IDF, is
That's
the
right.
only military in the world that it's risking its own people.
That's right.
Okay. Do you know how many tunnels they have in Gaza? Booby-trapped?
Yep.
1,300. And they are surrounded by the local people.
Yeah.
For instance, when they attacked on October 7, how did they know how to enter the bunkers? Okay. Because the people that were received with open arms to work in Israel, they gave out the secrets to Hamas.
Right.
It's unreal. It's unreal what's happening. Right now, what's happening? They have hijacked. Okay, the war never again.
Yes, you're right.
They hijacked it. This is the never again has to do only, in my opinion. Other people may disagree with me, which is fine. But in my opinion, it has to do only what happened during the Holocaust.
Right.
Never again.
This right now, the increase in anti-Jewish incidents in the United States between 2019 to 2024 alone, and the data that's out there, it's a 344% increase, folks. That is huge. That is way larger than any kind of normal inflation rate. The FBI is reporting a 63% rise in anti-Jewish hate crimes from 22 to 23 in their data. So the majority of that has been after 2023. That's now, where the majority of
let me tell you something.
Yeah.
There is a saying, no Jews, no news. Okay, take a look at Gaza. Okay, Hamas is claiming that Israel, killed 40,000. They're not mentioning that at least half of them are combatants, or were combatants. But so let's assume 40,000. Okay, let's take their number. Who cares? Now, how many people were murdered in Congo? Nate,
yeah, you're right.
500,000.
Yep.
Nobody says anything. How many people have been in Sudan, in Nigeria, and other places? Nobody talks. The only people. And I don't know how many times you have seen pictures of the famine that is happening in Gaza. Have you seen how healthy they are? Carrying large packages and everything else.
Yeah.
When they opened up routes for them, to leave before Israel bombs them. Where is the famine?
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Genocide. Take a look at genocide. This is very important for your audience because a lot of people don't know. 1948, between 500 and 700 Arabs left the country. Okay. At the same time, from the Arab countries, okay, between 700 and 1 million, okay, left the Arab countries, 58 countries. Take a look. In Israel, they have 2.5 million Palestinians. In Judea and Samaria, they have over 2 million. In Gaza, they have over 2 million. Where is the genocide? In all of the Arab countries, 58 countries, they have less than 4,000. Explain to me, where is the genocide?
Yeah.
They claim that the Jews are white. They are not white. Half of the population, even the majority in Israel, are
That's
from
right.
Arab countries, from
Yep.
Ethiopia.
Or
Ethiopia,
African country. Yeah,
they're
exactly.
as black as they can be. Okay, that's what I'm trying to say. That is indoctrination. Okay. Why they allowed the professors, the universities to indoctrinate our young people? I am saying one thing. In some of the most prestigious campuses in this country, some of the brightest young people that we have, future leaders of this country and the world, when they will graduate, they will become educated idiots. For Iran, they are useful idiots. And during the Passover, when we read from the Exodus, okay, from Egypt, there is a passage that says that in every generation, they try to annihilate us. We prevail. What's happening right now in the Middle East, we will prevail, we will win. And to the world, I have a very strong message. We are here to stay, whether you
That's right.
like it or not.
You know, you bring up that reminds me of something I wanted to ask you about. There's a lot of what I hear from people sometimes who try to claim that they're not being anti-Semitic or they're not being anti-Jewish. They'll say, I'm only anti-Zionist. And clearly they don't even understand what the word Zionism means. Talk to me about that. What is Zionism and why is it important?
Okay. Zionism, in very simple words, okay, is that the Jews have the right to have their own country and decide their own future, good, bad, or indifferent. That's all. Take a look how many other countries there are in the world: Muslim, Christians, other denominations. This is the only Jewish country in the world. And you know the funny part? The
So,
people from Israel,
yep,
okay, they are not second citizens.
that's
Okay,
right.
a Supreme Court, an Arab, put in prison. Excuse me, Regina. I'll call you back. Okay, so what happened is, okay, a Supreme Court judge, an Arab, put in prison a former prime minister, Israeli prime minister. They go to universities, everything. They have all the rights.
That's
They're
right.
doctors and everything else. Where is the discrimination? Okay,
Yet,
in
yet,
Israel,
if
they live together, all denominations, Jews, Christians, Muslims, okay, anybody from every country.
that's right.
They live
Yet,
in peace.
this is what bothers me about the whole anti-Zionism thing is that the same people that claim that they're opposed to Zionism, you don't hear them saying that Saudi Arabia shouldn't be allowed to have a Muslim country, or that you know what I'm saying. I'm like, if
Yes,
a Jew or a Christian lives in a Muslim nation, they have to pay a special tax. They don't have the same rights that Muslims have. Yet there are Muslims who live in Israel that have the same rights as the Jew that lives next to them.
exactly.
So this is another misnomer, and I want to make this clear. Anybody who says that they're not anti-Jewish, they're just anti-Zionist,
And
I want you to.
anti-Zionism is anti-Jews.
It is. I want them to
Okay,
ask themselves: do you believe that Israel has a right to exist?
who is a Zionist? Okay, it's mostly Jews.
That's right.
Now, if you want to say that, okay, a Zionist is only Jews, take a look at Kufi. You know about Kufi, right?
The who?
Dave? Kufi,
No.
Christians United for Israel.
Oh, yes,
11
yes, yes.
million,
Sorry.
11
Yes,
million people. They are
that's right.
Zionists. Okay,
That's
so
right.
then you're not going only against the Jews, you are going against the
That's
Christians.
right. I am a Christian Zionist because I believe that Israel has a right to exist. They have a right to defend themselves. They have a right to have their own
That
nation.
is Zionism.
And in
That's
the same
all.
way, I don't have a problem with Saudi Arabia having their country the way that they want to run it and the way that they want to protect their religion there is fine. I don't have a problem with that. What
The
I have a
funny
problem
part
with, though, is the double
yes,
standard in the media, the double standard amongst many on social media.
that's it.
That is
But
what's got to change.
you know what's the funny part? Okay, gay people are not welcomed in the Arab countries.
Yeah,
They are pro-Palestinian,
it is.
pro-Hamas.
It is crazy. Yeah,
It's the world is upside down. But on the positive side, it took a long time to come here. I'll give you one example. DEI. I spoke on TV. I was a long time against DEI because I don't like equity. Okay, there is no such as equality. Okay, there is equality. Okay, for what do you call it?
equal opportunity, but yeah,
For
equity
opportunity.
is
Exactly,
ridiculous.
exactly. Okay, so take a look. It went too far. The intention maybe was good, but they say that the road to hell is led with many well-intentioned people.
That's right.
So it went too far, and then all of a sudden the military did not want, a major organization did not want. Now it came with Trump, and it's gone. I use that as an example that it reaches a point that it goes so bad that eventually people will wake up.
Yeah, I agree.
So things will get worse, unfortunately. Okay, but eventually it will come to the middle.
Sammy, what bothers me about all of this is a much bigger problem than just the issue of anti-Jewish sentiment. I see a generation of people in America today growing up with social media that are listening to what they're being told, seeing what they're seeing, whether it's propaganda, whether it is a special interest group that's pushing their propaganda, or whether it's a government pushing their propaganda. But you see people who are buying into whatever they're being told, not challenging it. You see now the advent of AI and what AI is able to produce, which is insane. The video quality is so good, it's easy to believe what you're seeing. And this is where I have a concern, is that the education has got to be bringing back critical thinking, not critical theory, but critical thinking, where people can actually listen to an argument that is a false argument and break it down logically to recognize that it's a bunch of baloney.
Our,
And that,
our enemies do not
yep,
use logic. Okay, they use emotion, and
that's right.
that overcomes. Okay, logic.
Pathos. Yeah.
Okay, that is part of the problem. We do not react appropriately to that type of attack.
Yeah.
We use logic and everything else. That will not win over emotion.
No,
Okay.
but our children, I think, need to be educated to
Who is
use
going to
logic.
educate them?
Well, that's the problem. Certainly not the public schools today.
Okay, and certainly not the parents.
Yeah.
Okay, now, is it 100% bad? Of course not. Okay, but in general, the mentality is not working that we are using today. But I am not pessimistic. I'm sorry. Okay, I was always an optimist in my life, and I will die an optimist. As a matter of fact, what I do, because I serve in the Israeli Air Force, okay, when I go to schools, even fourth graders, I say one way or another, all of you will become leaders of this country in your community, neighborhood, okay, the city, the state. And then what I do is I go to them and I will salute the future leaders of our country. Is to give them hope, to feel that they
Yeah.
are somebody.
Yeah. And
Okay.
there are things that we don't know, that we can't predict, because we don't know the future. We don't know how things are going to impact. Like a lot of people, for example, I mentioned one of the uses of AI that's really bad, right, is producing propaganda videos that look very realistic that are completely fake. But AI is also very useful in going through a lot of data. And I think we're going to see independence driven in terms of people being able to fact check things by using AI that they couldn't do in the past. And so I've already used it myself many
Yeah.
times.
By the way, do you remember when they came out with the computers and they said will be unemployment? Okay,
Yes.
people will start with that and everything else.
Yes. That's a perfect
You,
example of how
you
pessimism
cannot
is,
predict the
really
future,
not very helpful, because you can't predict everything. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, we have to deal with it as it comes.
Yeah.
You know something? Uh, I would like to talk to you a lot more. Okay, and you are doing a tremendous job in educating your audience. And we need more people like you. As a matter of fact, for the first time, it was arranged for me because I live under the poverty line. I live in Manhattan, most expensive city in the country, on a monthly income of $1,602, and I still smile. But it was arranged for me, okay, to be at the summit of CUFI in Washington, D.C. Okay, and hopefully I will be able to have an in, and they can send me all over the world. They have 11 million people of Zionists, 11 million people. So what I'm going to suggest over there is that not the Jews, because the Jews will not do it, but hopefully Kufi can arrange, okay, a nationwide, okay, rally and bring the media with speakers. Let me give you an example. Have you heard of a rally, national rally called No Fear?
No, I have not.
Okay. It was in Washington, D.C., I think about 3, 4 years ago. They expected about 500,000 people, whatever. Almost every Jewish organization co sponsored it. Only 3,000 people showed up. They were wonderful speakers. Okay. They had a senator, they had a congressman. Not a single Jewish leader was there. The media was not there. And guess
Of
what?
course.
Nobody knows. And that's why I'm saying
Yeah.
knowledge without action and without the media is not effective.
Well, I would love to see you come to West Virginia and
If you
speak at
can
some of our
arrange for
schools.
me to speak in as many schools, I
We have
spoke.
our population in West Virginia. We're less than 0.1% Jewish in West Virginia. It
I
is.
spoke to 1,200 students, not a single Jewish kid. I
That's right.
told them whatever
But
what I
that's
wanted, and I
but they're
got
the
no
people that need to
backlash.
know about this, because they're not likely to hear the stories told to them by their parents or told to them by their teachers, because it may not be relevant to them, but it should be relevant, because it is an example of what can happen to any group of people
Correct.
if human rights are not protected, and if the government is allowed to have that much power. And this is the kind of thing that we're seeing today, that I think the one hope that I have, and what I don't think you can see, is I'm a huge Second Amendment advocate. I mean, massive. That is extremely important to me. Not because I hope to ever have to use any of my weapons. I hope I don't. But because I know that as long as the American people are able to be armed, the likelihood of their government getting too badly out of control is very low. I mean, it's going to be moments, but but I don't think that
Absolutely.
they'll ever be able to take over.
Absolutely. And right now, what's happening is that the left, right
Yeah,
now, the ultra left, uh, there are, oh, look, every ethnic group has its own criminals, has its own bad people, and everything else. But right now, everything, okay, they're saying that it's only the right. It's not the right, it's the left,
that's right.
okay? And the difference is with the right, okay, they're visible.
Right.
With the left, they're not visible. It's Antifa. Who is Antifa? Okay, and that is part of the problem. And then if you want to say something, okay, then they say you are a fascist and you are, you know, whatever name they want
Yeah,
to
and
give.
the funny thing about that is that this notion of fascism amongst the right is ridiculous because when you think about it, the idea of fascism is the government, basically having the ownership of the corporation and everything. So this is very much a leftist ideology. And the funny thing is, they also talk about that with the Nazis. They use that interchangeably, even though the Nazis were actually socialists. They were national socialists. So
Right.
it's very it should I should say it's sad, but it is kind of comical just how uneducated some of these supposed college
Right.
students are that are spouting this stuff. It just goes to show that a lot of what is being taught is garbage.
Yeah. By the way, Nate, can you see me? Can you hear
Yes.
me?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, because I lost the video. But anyway, what I wanted to say, I would like to continue this one. And if you can bring me to West Virginia in as many places, the more I talk, the happier I am. I've given presentations, 7 presentations in one day. I am not scripted. Okay, I don't know what I'm going to say, how I'm going to relate. And okay,
Well,
and
Sammy, I live in the Eastern Panhandle. I'm about an hour and 15 minutes away from Washington D.C. Very close to Maryland, very close to Northern Virginia, and of course, at the gateway into West Virginia. And I'd love to talk with you more and introduce you to some folks and try to get provide some opportunities for you to speak here because I think you do have a compelling story, and I think it's important for people to hear. And I want to thank you for coming on the show today and spending some time. I know you have another event that you have to get to,
yes.
so I always like to end my show by asking my guest. We've talked about a lot of things, but what is the most important thing that you want people to take away from our conversation today?
The one thing that I want to do is to understand that silence is death. I want everybody to be proud of their heritage and to teach their children. I don't like, for instance, when they say Jewish American, Afro American, Italian American. That means that one group is inferior or superior to another group. I live in the United States. I am an American, but very proud Jew. So we
Hmm.
have to be proud of our heritage, but we have to be united. There is no other country that people identify themselves by their heritage, the country they came from.
That's true.
We are Americans. We have to be united, and okay, we have to educate yourself. You cannot change anybody. You can change only somebody's perspective. But to change somebody's perspective, you have to be educated on the subject that is of interest to you. So education is key. Education, education, education.
Amen. Well, Sammy, again, I want to thank you for coming on the show. I always like to close my show in prayer. I believe that we've got to do our part,
Please do.
but
Please
we
do.
absolutely need the help from on high. So
Oh,
I'm going to
I
go ahead
have to
and,
tell you. I have to tell you something interesting.
yes.
I was invited by a Mormon to come to Salt Lake City, and while I was over there, okay, they asked me if they can use the word Jesus Christ. I said, "Well, I'm at your home. This is your home. You do what you want." I haven't heard so much of Jesus Christ, okay, in my life. Okay, but I respect everybody. We have
Hmm.
to feel comfortable with what we are. So by all
Yep.
means, okay, by all means, prayers help.
Yes. Thank you. Heavenly Father, I thank you for the good work that Sami is doing. I thank you, Lord, for keeping him healthy and alive despite all of the things that happened to him as a child. Lord, I pray that you would continue to bless the mission that you have given him, and that you would continue to lead him to places where he can have influence and can affect youth and the next generation of people, so that this country can be free from racism and from anti-Jewish hate. Lord, I pray that you would bless this nation again, Lord, that you would return this nation to being a bright and shining light in a sea of darkness, Lord. I pray that you would help us to be the city on the hill once again. And Lord, I pray that you would completely destroy the propaganda, that you would expose it for what it is, and that you would not allow it to remain and to infect the minds of young people in this country. Lord, I pray that you would help us to find ways of being able to expose it better and quicker. And I thank you, God, that we are, as a people, that there does seem to be a shift that is happening in our country overall towards the good, towards more righteousness. We just pray, Lord, that you would help us to get a handle on those that would do harm to others. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Sami. God bless you, and thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate your time, and you have a wonderful time tonight at the event that you're going to.
Thank you. And one other thing,
Yes, sir.
if you don't mind, please share my information to your audience.
Yes, thank you very much. I almost forgot. Sami, where can people follow you on social media, and what is your website?
My website is SAMI speaks.com. My email is sami1939@gmail.com. Okay, and okay, so
are you on X?
Yes, I am on X. Okay, so it's my phone number 646-418-0875. Okay, yes.
Great.
I'm also on Instagram. I don't know how to use it. I call myself,
I'm still trying to figure that out myself.
I call myself MD. I am not a medical doctor. I am media deficient. So I use my main platform is email in Facebook. I know that a lot of young people are getting away from it. And my Instagram is basically a short version of Facebook. I take from Facebook and I transfer it to the Instagram.
Sami,
So
I will. I'll make sure that that information is put into the show notes as well, so that way when people click on the video, folks, you should be able to look into the show notes tonight, and you'll be able to see all of the links to his website and to his email and social media.
as a matter of fact, when I sent you the information, you have all the numbers in all the
Yes, I do.
groups. Okay, very good. Nate, this was amazing. I'll thank you for what you're doing. May God bless you. Keep doing what you're doing, because we need people like you. Unfortunately, that is the biggest problem that we had in the past, that we're having today. Not enough people are doing what you are doing. And may God bless you.
There's a couple of things that in my life have had a huge impact on me in terms of being willing to speak up. One of those has been a scripture that where it says, "Do not fear what man can do to the body, only fear what God can do to the soul in hell." It says, "And what I whisper in your ear, shout from the rooftops." And I think that's important. I think we have to, if we are truly, believers, and many of the people that watch my show are Christians, not all, but many of them are. And so this message is really for them. Listen, if you are truly a believer, you cannot be afraid of what man can do to you.
Correct.
You have to fear God, and you have to speak up, because when we don't speak, it is complicity.
Yes. And one of the problems that we have in this country is God has been taken out from schools.
I agree. Okay. Yep. The beginning of, it's in the Proverbs, right? The beginning of all wisdom is the fear of the Lord. When people fear the Lord, they're less likely to do things without, checking it in their mind and thinking about whether or not this is something I'm going to be held accountable for. And I know the other thing that I want to say is that there's another scripture that says that, and I think it's in James. I think it's James 1:4, but it says that he who knows the good that he ought to do and does not do it, it is sin for him. See, it's not enough to just be a good person and not do wrong, but we are supposed to do what is right, especially when we have the opportunity and when we know. And so that's why I became a federal whistleblower and risked destroying my career and everything, because I knew that it was the right thing to do. We have to be willing to step up and speak out and do the right thing, even if it costs us, because this life is temporary. The next life will be permanent. And I don't want to stand before God someday and have him say, hey, remember that opportunity I gave you to do the right thing and you chose not to. I don't want to hang my head in shame someday. Sami, thank you for coming on. Folks, thank you for watching the show. This is a pre-recorded show, so if you didn't hear me responding to your chats in the comment, that's why I apologize, but we had to do it this way for the sake of an event that Sami had, and he was kind enough to come on at last minute. Folks, remember, stay vigilant and always be willing to do the right thing, even if it costs you. You will never regret it, but if you don't do the right thing, I guarantee you, you will regret it. Have a good night, and God bless.
Good night. Thank you. Thank you, Nate, and thank you, audience.
Have a great night.
Yes.
Raise some Cain. You gotta raise some Cain. In the heartland where the faith runs strong, we've seen the shadows growing long. Watch those around us be deceived. Yeah, the fight is at our doors, no matter who we believe. Corruption, lawless day and night, we'll speak the truth into the light. We'll bring the battle, heed the call, watch the whole thing fall. We gotta raise some Cain, show the lies, break some chains and make things right. Feel the power, be the change, time is now. We gotta raise some Cain.